Democrat says conservative SCOTUS judge should not rule on Trump, CNN. Democrat Representative Jamie Raskin has said SCOTUS Judge Clarence Thomas should recuse himself from Donald Trump's ballot cases due to his wife's ties to the January 6 insurrection. The congressman's comment came during a CNN interview, when host Dana Bash asked him whether Thomas or any of the judges appointed by the former president should step back from ruling on his cases in Maine and Colorado. Some conservative commentators have slammed Raskin and the network over the clip, saying the exchange was evidence that Dems want to destroy the Supreme Court. Republicans are in the process of appealing to the Supreme Court over Colorado's removal of Trump from the primary race ballot. The Centennial State was the first to apply a rarely used constitutional ban against those who engaged in insurrection, to prevent people in the state being able to vote for the former president in 2024. Democrat Representative Jamie Raskin told CNN's Dana Bash that SCOTUS Judge Clarence Thomas should recuse himself from Donald Trump's ballot cases due to his wife's ties to the January 6 insurrection. Justice Clarence Thomas, seen in his official portrait in 2022, should be recused from any future rulings relating to Trump being removed from the ballot in Colorado and Maine, according to Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin. Republicans are in the process of appealing to the Supreme Court over Colorado's removal of Trump from the primary race ballot. It was followed by Maine, which ruled under the same provision. SCOTUS judges are yet to announce whether they will take up the Republicans' appeal. During CNN's New Year's Eve State of the Union program, anchor Bash asked Ranking House Oversight Democrat Rep. Raskin about the case and whether Thomas, 75, or the judges appointed by Trump should recuse themselves on ethical grounds. 3 of the sitting justices were appointed by Donald Trump, Bash said, referring to Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch. And in addition to that, Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny, texted with Mark Meadows about the 2020 election in the lead-up to January 6. As you well know, she said. Should any of the justices recuse themselves if they take this up? Raskin, who represents Maryland, swerved the question about whether the 3 Trump appointees would be too biased to make a ruling on the former president, but said Thomas should, absolutely, recuse himself. I think anybody looking at this in any kind of dispassionate, reasonable way would say, if your wife was involved in the big lie, and claiming that Donald Trump had actually won the presidential election and been agitating for that and participating in the events leading up to January 6, that you shouldn't be participating in the rulings, he said. When asked directly whether Thomas should recuse himself, Raskin said, he absolutely should recuse himself. The question is, what do we do if he doesn't recuse himself? As the clip circulated online, it was greeted with a tirade of angry comments from conservative critics. Raskin, who represents Maryland, swerved the question about whether the 3 Trump appointees would be too biased to make a ruling on the former president, but said Thomas should, absolutely, recuse himself. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, left, and his wife Ginny, right, depart Justice Sandra Day O'Connor's funeral service in Washington earlier this year. I think CNN should recuse themselves from just about commenting on anything and everything, one man thundered. Your bias is oozing out of your pores. The amount of times that you've lied to the American people just makes you absolutely irrelevant. Another person wrote, Thomas does not have to recuse himself since no liberal justice has done the same when ruling on something affecting the Democrats. Raskin is in fear of Trump winning. The court is protected by the Constitution. However, other viewers agreed that Thomas should recuse himself due to his wife's involvement in the case, with one person claiming that the current Supreme Court lineup is the most compromised in memory. Ginny Thomas, 66, was questioned by the January 6 committee late last year over a string of texts and emails between her and then-President Trump's election attorney John Eastman and his chief of staff Mark Meadows. In text messages to Meadows, Thomas urged him to continue the fight to overturn the 2020 result. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginny Thomas. Help this great president stand firm, Mark. You are the leader, with him, who is standing for America's constitutional governance at the precipice. The majority knows. Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history. I regret all of these texts, Thomas voluntarily told the panel during a closed-door deposition on Capitol Hill on September 29. In her testimony, she expressed her embarrassment about personal text messages being made public but was concerned about allegations of voter discrepancies while texting with then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. It was an emotional time, and people were scared that there had been enough fraud happened that they weren't going to get to the bottom of it, Thomas said.